something about your encounters with Samir and what you think of him.
Oh, well, I met Samir the first time in 1965 in Dakar. And we became big friends, brothers. And we make many things together during these 55 years. And for me, Samir was a very important person, not only for me, for the world. Because, in fact, he was one of the bigger thinkers of decolonization. And he understood immediately that decolonization was a step in the story of humanity. And so he was very involved in this. He understood the importance of Bandung and all what was going, starting from this. And he defined himself as a Marxist of the South, a South Marxist. And being Marxist of the South allowed him to understand all the world, because the South was the hidden part of the world. And starting from the South allowed to understand really what was going on. And also, Samir understood very good that with the beginning of neocolonialism and then of neoliberalism in the 80s, that decolonization was not finished. And we were always in this period of decolonization. The first part of decolonization, the first step, that means state independency, was achieved. But the second one is beginning. That means people liberation. You see, in Bandung, Zhou Enlai said something very interesting. He said, state needs independence, nation needs liberation, and people need revolution. And I think it was really the real idea of Samir and of many people as me, for example. So we understood it was a step. And Samir was a very important person in this step, because he understood that struggle was ongoing and a very hard struggle. Very hard struggle because, in fact, we were in a period that we can say of counter-revolution. A try of recolonization, for example. And structural adjustment is a kind of recolonization. But, of course, there is also the resistance to this recolonization, and all people struggle. And Samir was not only a thinker, he was also a militant, directly involved in struggles of people, of the people, in people struggle. And so that's why I think it was a very wonderful person. Not only a thinker, as he said, but you know, also Samir was an Egyptian. As an Egyptian, he was a very kind person. Even when we fight in ideas, well, we didn't agree, he was always very kind and very attentive to people. And with a big sense of humor. This is Egyptian qualities. And Samir was a real Egyptian on this way. And so I have to say that Samir, if he could have been a very academic, known person, he was very well known, of course, but he chose not to be an official academician. And also, he could have been something like one of the people loved by state, but he didn't accept this. And he was really angry against the evolution of states coming out of independency. Even if he agreed with the strategy of Bandung, that means a national revolution, democratic and popular, open to socialism. But he knew that it was not the case of all the states and of the alliance between imperialism and the direction of the state. So he was really, he knew what was going on, he was fighting against it, and he was really one of the representatives, one of the main representatives of what we could say a hero of liberation.
So actually, he had this idea of forming an international of workers and peoples because he thinks that the movements are too fragmented. But then this is not to be composed of only political parties. It should be composed of popular organizations and workers, unions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So, but of course, he was also quite frustrated because this didn't move. Yes, but then how do you think that something could be done about this linkage of the and connection of the movements, so that we can become a stronger force against this counter-revolution?
It's a question. It's the main question. Because, in fact, you see, after decolonization, we had the first periods of something like new possibilities, with some governments and some states coming from liberation in Africa and Asia, and starting with the idea of new way. But this step ended at the end of the 70s. It ended for two reasons. One of the reasons was the offensive of imperialism, and it was an organized offensive by World Bank, IMF, and what Samir called the triad, of course, United States, Europe, and Japan. And with all the crises, the debt crisis and all this, so it was a way to stop the decolonization and to try to begin recolonization. But also with the error of the regime coming out of liberation, nation liberation. Of course, for many reasons, it will be interesting to enter in it, but for many reasons, one of the reasons was that in many countries, the alliance between social movements, communist parties, and national movements, national liberation movement, was not stable. And that we had a lot of coup d'etat and also assassination of leaders. And then we enter in a period where people were really aware and want to find a kind of liberation step, but was not able to do it. This was the from Bandung to 67 or 68. We have something like this. Well, then we had also a very important movement from 65 to 73 in all the world. In France, it was May 68. Well, we had many discussions with Samir with this. Samir was aware about this. He don't think it was really a revolution. He said it was perhaps one of the way of neoliberalism to come in with the idea of individualism. Well, we had many discussions on this. No, I think with Wallerstein that in fact it was a kind of revolution in the mind and in the relation between individual and collective. Of course, a part of this revolution was recuperated by neoliberalism, but another part pursue and continue. And this explains the link between the parties and communist parties and social movements. And social movements are new actors. I remember that Vinod Rena told me once that in Hiroshima in 1984, they had, you were here, I think. The discussion was, so we have to work to people liberation, but who will do this people liberation? The state? No. The party? No. Because the party and state are too linked. And they say, okay, the movement. And the idea of the social movement with also the Zapatista revolution. So it's a new way. The social movement is a new way. But of course, social movements are very diverse. Some of them are going to became NGOs, you see, not really interested by radical change. Others are, yes. And so we have something new that begin in the 80s. And what began in the 80s is the alter globalist movement. And the alter globalist movement have many steps. The first step of the alter globalist movement was the answer to neoliberalism strategy. That means the question of structural adjustment and the debt. So the first alter globalist movement was the movement in the South against debt and structural adjustment. And after this, we arrived to 89, because it's a very important step, of course. It was the end of what Samir said. He called it, it was a very good idea of Samir. He was very clever in his way to understand things. He called it Sovietism. He said it's not the failure of socialism, it's the failure of Sovietism. Because, in fact, and so 89 is the end of Sovietism. But after the end of Sovietism, the triad, the imperialist camp, they decide to have a new international order, and to build a new international order from 89 to 99. And the answer of the alter globalist movement was the big demonstration in Genoa, in Washington, in Madrid, against IMF and against WTO. And it was very interesting, very important. And the idea, the first step was no structural adjustment. And the second step for the alter globalist movement was the international law, international rights cannot be subordinated to business rights. This was the second step of alter-globalist movement. And after this, we enter in the World Social Forum. After Seattle. And you know it, of course, the World Social Forum with Porto Alegre, Mumbai, Caracas, Bamako, all the Tunis. And in fact, in 2008, we enter in a new phase with the financial crisis. And the answer of the people to the financial crisis was the revolution in Tunisia, the Indignados in Spain and in Southern Europe, Occupy Wall Street, all the Chile and in all the world, many demonstrations and a new movement. But in 214, we enter in a counter-revolution to stop these new movements. And for example, after El Tahrir in Egypt, we have Sisi. And so we are in this period. And we had many discussions with Samir on this. It is a hard period for us, of course. But you have to remember that revolutions are short and counter-revolutions are long. But counter-revolution don't abolish revolution. Because what is new continue and came out with another generation and with new ideas. And I think we are in this period. That means it's a very hard period because it's counter-revolution. And this counter-revolution, you say, you remember this phrase of Gramsci, which was in 1937, before he died. He said, old world is dying, new world is not yet here, and in this time, this is a hard time, arrives a monster. So the problem is the problem of cultural hegemony. And we have a tendency that the gain of new ideology, racist, xenophobic, securitarian, and on the question of migrant, which is a way to concretize this ideology, the war against migrants. And in fact, in this time, this ideology is really having success in many parts of the world. Look Modi in India, look Orban in Hungary, look Sisi, look Latin America. It's a mess. But I think my idea is, in fact, this counter-revolution, it is the fear of the dominant classes because of the new world who is coming. Of course, we don't know what will be this new world, but it makes very violence and resistance, of course. But you have many big revolution ongoing. One end is the woman revolution, the revolution for women rights. Well, it's millenary social relations which are changing. Of course, the resistance is very big and the violence is very big. But the gains are here. And also ecology, with the question of, it's a philosophical revolution. You know, I remember the way, and I remember I was discussing with Samir of this, the way that we were calling about development. We cannot use this word now. It's really a philosophical revolution. And the problem of internet, for example, because internet is not only it's only a technical or scientific revolution. It's also the question of language and writing, and also the question of the second step of decolonization. That means all the question of the new invention needed between state and nation, who was the old step. And also the question of the planet's population. And the question of migration is not a crisis. The question of migration, it's a structural change. So I think for the new generation, as we say, Samir, it is a task of the new generation. They have some chance, and they have many difficulties. And Samir gave many keys to understand the world and to try to change it.